Hi guys, welcome back to Julia's Palette Studio. I am back in the studio and I am revisiting in the progress of this painting. As you can see, I am still working on the jacquard fabric of this. I'm still adding the colors and shadows and still working on the patterns. I had to adjust my light here. I am doing a voiceover with this video, so bear with me. I had filmed this, but my microphone while filming had gone out on me, so I am starting over with the audio. So anyway, yeah, I am back to this. I am going to be leaving the the picture and the vase blank. I'm not going to put any pattern in there. I'm going to have quiet spaces there for them. There's a lot of busyness going on in this painting, and the eye needs places to rest. So because of the overall pattern, there is that darker area up there that is a quiet spot for the viewer. The viewer has to have a place to rest their eyes. So I am going to, instead of putting the pattern of the curtain that I see in my photograph, I am just going to leave that a dark area for a quiet spot. And on the left, there is pattern on the left, but it isn't as detailed and bright. So that is more or less a little bit of a quiet space for the eye as well. So I am going to leave those pattern free. I'm going to be working on that cloth that folds over right there next to the pitcher and the bee pot. There is a shadow that I'm going to have to add right in there. So I have Misket on that right now on the pattern that's on there to protect that. But I am going to be adding a dark shadow in there because that cloth is folded over. So I am going to be doing that. And I am still working on the detail of the honey pot. Probably won't finish that honey pot till the very end of the very last thing of the painting. I am going to add little bits because I know that there's color from related objects that show up in the glass, so I will be doing that. But I'm looking at the color comparison right now between the reference photo that I have and the colors that I have put down. Right now, I think they're pretty close. I know I still have some adjustments, and I don't have to be totally exact 100%. I mean, there is such a thing as artist license, but I am close in those in the hues and the values and the variations of them. So I'm not going to beat myself up too much. I know that I have to add some cooler tones in the background there. And I have to be mindful that I do want to have some soft edges up there somehow. But I am going to be adding a cooler color in the back to set it a little bit farther back. And I'm looking right now at that bright neon yellow that's popping out. That is a bismuth yellow, if you ask me. It's one of my favorite yellows to use. I probably will put that down on the painting. There's the bismuth yellow right there. That is the bismuth yellow. It is a real cool bright yellow, and for me it leans towards a green. It has like a greenish tint in it. I might be totally off, but whenever I look at that, I see a greenish tint. But it's one of my favorite yellows to use, especially like if I'm painting a lemon. or anything that's like lemony yellow. I know that I also use, you know, the Winsor Newton lemon yellow. There's another brand. There's a couple of brands that have lemon yellow, which is a cool yellow. But if I want that, I don't know, bismuth just is it has a little bit of a green cast. So I do use that. So I'm deciding where I'm going to go with this right now, where I'm going to start. I am, like I said, going to leave that plain. I am going to have to put in some darker values and darker orange back there because it has to be set, it has to set back. So right now I'm going to turn it upside down so that I can work on that pattern and have that in front of me instead of reaching across. But I am going to mix up. I have some orange mixed up, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a glaze of burnt sienna over the orange to cool it down, to push it back a little bit. So that's what I'm doing right there. I've got some burnt sienna that I put on my palette. I have some orange that I mixed up there using alizarin crimson and Indian yellow. It's like a burnt orange color that I used. But now I'm going to add some burnt sienna and just lay some of that down. And hopefully that'll push it back. I may have to add some ultramarine blue. I may have to do a glaze of that. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to just see. But I do have to do, like, I feel like I'm doing paint by number when I'm painting these small pattern shapes with the glaze. That's the only thing I don't like about this type of subject right here, is because when I do the glazes on these patterns, it is a little bit like paint by number. And it's okay. If you're listening to music and you just want to relax, and it's always a good thing. It's very relaxing when you do that. I mean, I know what I have to do. So I'm just filling in that area with the wash. Just a light wash of burnt sienna. I just want to push it back. Push that orange back. It's not cooling it down with the burnt sienna. It's not cooling it down. It's just making it like a little darker in value. It's not neutralizing it as much as it should, probably. That's probably why I'm going to have to add some ultramarine blue, a glaze of that afterwards. But I'm just going to put that down and see what I'll need to do. It's a push me, pull you. Absolutely. So that's what I'm going to be doing right here. And I'm actually going to see if I can speed this up for you guys so that you guys don't have to get totally bored stiff. So I'm gonna do that real quick. Okay, so I think you guys know what I'm doing and what my intent here is. I am speeding this up so that you don't have to, you know, watch every single thing that I'm doing here. Obviously, I don't want to bored you guys. So yeah, I am just taking that burnt sienna and filling in all those little spaces. More than likely I'm going to have to, as I'm looking at it, even just watching my progress here, I know I'm going to have to add just a slight wash of ultramarine blue. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to do that. I don't have to. I think it's just I want to, because when I do that, it will neutralize it even more and set it back even more and just make it more restful and not as bold. So I'm just checking my color and where I'm at with this. Always making sure I'm, just checking the drawing. And I don't normally use a tiny brush like this. This is a size 6. Don't normally use a brush like that at all. So I've got that down, and I'm filling in the pattern that I had above that. We're filling that in, and I don't want to go any smaller with a brush. Size 6 is plenty small for me. It's one of my favorite brush companies. It is by Silver. It's a silver brush, and this is the Black Velvet series. And the brush I'm using here is a size 6. 3 looks like a 3000 S round. Might be the series number. But yeah, these silver brushes, I really, really like them. I have silver brushes, another style of silver brush that I like, but this Black Velvet I really like for watercolor. They come to a beautiful point and are just phenomenal. I know I have them in several sizes. I know I'm going to have to buy a few more because the wood handles are chipping off, and I've had them for quite a while. And I always make the mistake of leaving them in water too long. That is something that's a no-no. Absolutely a no-no for brushes in watercolor. You do not want to leave your brushes in the water. The water will soak up and soak into the ferrule of the brush and ruin them. So I'm just doing a color check here. Again, just checking the pattern. I added a little bit more burnt sienna in this area just to make it a little bit darker. Just a tiny bit darker in that area. And I'm painting around some flower buds right there. Just painting around those. And it's a slow, when you work on something like this, and especially me, it's a slow process when you do the glazing and layering. And I know in that area there that I'm pointing to, I'm going to have to be doing some lifting in that area. When I laid in my wet and wet wash, I laid in a little bit too much color, so I know over in that area on the right side, I'll have to lift out a little bit. I can't lift it back to white, and I don't want to lift it back to white, but I do want to lighten the color in there. I'm not going to do that probably until the end, because once you do some lifting like that, because I want to put some of those bright yellows in. There's some bright yellow leaves there on the very far right. So I know when I do the lifting, when you do lifting on a watercolor paper, you are disturbing the surface of your paper. So you are going to have to be careful. And then when you try to reapply the paint, you know, sometimes it doesn't cooperate as much as you would hope. So that's why I'm going to leave that part until the end. So now I'm flipping that back over and I'm taking a look to see how I like that patterned area I just did. And from what I'm seeing, I know now for sure I am going to have to be putting a very light wash of that blue down. And I'm going to use the ultramarine blue. I'm going to be using that because that is the color in the pattern that I have. In the pattern that I have in the background, the blue part, that is ultramarine blue. And I believe it has a little tiny bit of cadmium red light in that, just to bring it down to make it not quite as bright. And I know when I did that green area in there that I'm pointing to, I added a glaze on the top of that of alizarin crimson to neutralize that, because you know orange and blue are opposite, so when you mix the two together you'll get a neutral color. They'll neutralize, it neutralizes it. And then same with red and green, when you mix those together you'll get beautiful browns and neutrals and even grays and khakis and beautiful colors. But so yeah, that's how I tone colors down, is by adding their complement. I add their complement and it neutralizes them a little bit, calms them down, sets them back. And you don't want to be garish. You don't want all your colors to be right out of the tube. You definitely want to mix them. I mean, sometimes in a painting, it will call for a color right out of the tube, but not very often. There are cases, you know, when I was painting a toy bucket, and I thought, okay, well, I can't take it right out of the tube. I'm going to have to mix it. But every time I tried to mix it with another color, it was a green bucket, and it just wasn't right. So I eventually added, I did use the color right out of the tube. So here I'm just showing you the phthalo blue with the cadmium red light added to it. How you can take it from that bright, beautiful blue, and then by adding the cadmium red light to it, you're going to give yourself a more subtler color blue. It is going to still be a dark, beautiful blue, but it's not going to be as, you know, garish right out of the tube. And then if you add more, you're going to get a beautiful gray and black. And so that is how I mix some blacks. I mean, I have a couple black mixtures that I like to use. I don't use black out of a tube at all. I never buy black. I don't buy Payne's gray. I don't buy black. I don't buy any kind of gray paint. I know there's a lot of artists that do, but I choose to mix. Look how beautiful and rich that black is. So yeah, that's just by adding, that is by adding the cadmium red light to the phthalo blue. And that's how I get that. So I'm just checking out what I have to do, rinsing my brush. I'm going to have to soften the edge. I realized that I had dropped some of that phthalo blue paint and it did bleed into that one area. So I'm just going to take a clean bead of clean water and run it along the edge there just to soften that so it's not such a hard edge. That area is going to be painted with more color. There is going to be more color added there, but I did want to start and just soften that edge. So I just, like I said, just put some clean water on my brush and I'm just running it along that edge. Not flooding it, but just running some clean water down just to soften it up. And yeah, there will be a darker color going in there. It is a pink. It is that magenta pink. And then of course I have that bright yellow patch. I'm going to have to experiment with that because I don't know if I'm going to like that or not. I might take my artist license and use and do something else with it. I'm not sure. But and so right now I'm just taking the paper towel and just blotting it a little bit. I see it running just a little bit. I don't want it quite as wet, so I'm just kind of lifting it off a little bit. So all in all, I mean, I am making progress. It is a little bit mind-boggling sometimes, but if I take one section at a time or one area at a time, it's a lot better. And of course, it's very relaxing when you're working on patterns and using glazing. It's very relaxing because you know what you have to do. So I'm looking at that soft cloth where the picture is, and I'm laying in some fresh clean water because I'm going to add that starting to add that dark shadow in there. So I'm just paying attention. I don't have it drawn in. I'm just using my eyesight and my water and just laying in that area of water. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop in some phthalo blue right out of the tube. I'm going to drop some of that in and start my shadow that way. And I love painting shadows. That's probably one of my absolute favorite things to do when I paint. And I have a lot of paintings where the shadows are a big part of the painting. Real colorful, big, bright shadows. And I miss those because I just love doing that. So yeah, I dropped in some phthalo and I'm just going to manipulate it with the water a little bit. But it is a darker area and watercolor does dry lighter than acrylic or oil. So sometimes you think you're putting down a really dark color, but in reality, when it dries, it's not as dark as you think it is. So yeah, I went in and I dropped in some more phthalo blue and gonna let that dry, and then I'm gonna go in and I'm going to drop in some cadmium red light to get that neutral grayish blackish shadow right underneath where it comes over the top, where the cloth comes over the top, right underneath that little curve. That's where the shadow is the darkest. So I'll be adding in that cadmium red light in there. because that's where it's the darkest. So I'm just going to let that sit. But yeah, that's where I'll add in that, and then we'll see how that goes once it dries. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much it for today. So guys, if you happen to like the video and thought it was interesting, you got something out of it, or you just liked it, please make sure that you guys hit like and subscribe. And you know what? Even share it. Thanks, guys. And I will see you soon next time at Julia's Paint Your Heart Out Fine Art Studio. Talk soon. See ya.